So I think we should just have a great conversation about AI and acquisitions, because we're leading the path, right? All right, good. But before we start, thought I'd share a couple little tidbits of fact. First of all, the way we're going to run our panel is we're going to have a discussion. I'm going to share a few questions, but I'm inviting my panelists to all just kind of speak up and ask each other questions, and let's just have a conversation up here, and let's have some fun. The previous panel set a beautiful stage, phenomenal ladies talking about how we use AI in supporting our mission, and we certainly are the enablers of that mission. So let's have some fun. But before I start, I want to introduce two very special ladies that are here in the audience with us today. They're very special guests. Polly brought them to us today, but they currently are employed at TSA. So these two ladies are members of the DHS Acquisition Professionals Career Program, and that is an internship program for acquisition professionals. So first, I'm going to introduce Sarah Trudeau. She's in her third year as a contract specialist, APCP. She is currently with TSA Office of Contracting and Procurement. Prior to joining TSA, Sarah completed her first APCP rotation at the Federal Emergency Management Agency in the Incident Support Branch. Sarah came to the APCP program as part of another program that DHS stood up to get contract specialist trainees. And that program is called Student Hire Internship Program. And it goes out and pulls people from their final year of college and gives them a taste of what acquisition is about. So Sarah, welcome. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being a part of both programs. Our second guest is Kayla Poole. And stand up so everybody can see your beautiful face. There you go. Thank you. Yeah. And our second guest is Kayla Poole. She is also a member of the Acquisition Professionals Career Program. She's in her first year as a contract specialist in the program. She is also with TSA in the Credentialing, Screening, and Intelligence Acquisition Division. And prior to joining DHS, Kayla completed administrative internships at the National Security Agency, and the Defense Information Service Agency. So welcome, Kayla, and thank you for joining us today. And I say they're special because this is our future. They're going to be up here one of these days. So thank you very much. So as we talk about AI and acquisitions, I thought I'd share with you, Deloitte completed a study late 2023. It was a Chief Procurement Officer survey, and it revealed that procurement teams are now being called upon to address a broader range of enterprise priorities. These range from driving operational efficiency, about 74% of the respondents said that, and enhancing corporate social responsibility, about 72% said that, to improving margins via cost reduction, and about 71% of the respondents said that. To meet these rising expectations, many procurement teams are turning to advanced analytics, AI, and machine learning to transform the way they make smart business buying decisions and create value for the organization. So today we're going to talk a little bit about AI and acquisitions, innovations, and challenges. And I'm going to open with Dina. I'm going to turn to you. When we talk about the use of technologies, individuals have a tendency to focus on the use of newer technologies like AI, et cetera, causing the elimination of jobs. I certainly don't agree with that. I think it's a great opportunity. But I want to hear what you think, and what do you see the benefits, and what do you see as the benefits of using AI?
So first of all, I agree with you. We need that technology. AI and anything in that realm is a tool that we use in the same way that in the olden days we used typewriters and we went to use Microsoft Word to type things. And God help us if we had to have handwritten contracts. We'd be in trouble. So technology is our friend. It is a tool that we use. And this tool in particular helps with improving accuracy and efficiency in the way that offices are run. At least on the government side, we have what seems like a series of annual budget reductions. They usually come for staffing first, especially in the procurement realm because we're overhead. So we often get cut, and we don't have enough people to manage our mission as it is. Mm-hmm. So using this technology to eliminate some of the grunt work that we're responsible for doing mm-hmm. It helps us to perform better, the quality and the timeliness of us getting things done. In our office, we started a little over a year ago with some tiny RPA initiatives, not really AI, but AI trending. Mm-hmm. And so we use that to do things like contract closeout, populating our OTA agreements because they're pretty much a standard form, liquidating PRs, things like that. So that saved us hours and hours of manpower. This year, we're just beginning to toy with a little bit of generative AI. So we're looking at developing PR packages, and I'm specifically looking at creating requirements documents. So we're just getting started with that, but that's going to save us a whole lot of back and forth work with program offices that can't quite get statements of work or PWSs written correctly. So we're gonna see probably in a maybe close to another year how that's working for us, and then we grow upon that. I consider those things the AI that we use in our mission. Then there's the AI that we buy. So here at TSA, we are using, and we have been for a while, we're exploring ways to use machine learning to detect prohibited items at airports. So if a TSO agent sees a bag and it has a box of truffles in it, then we can tell, is it really a box of truffles, or is it just something that seems to be a box of truffles? 3 times Soraya. Soraya. I use the word truffle.
There's a trick up here, but keep going.
So we're doing that. We're also looking at reducing false alarm rates. So we're using machine learning to do those kind of things that'll help improve our security mission as well, and passenger throughput at airports. Again, I don't think AI is never going to replace a human being. We call it human in the loop. So humans have to go in, whether it's in my office scenario or at the airports, and validate that the information is correct and accurate before it can go any further. But we won't be replacing any people because we need them to be able to do that.
Well, you hit on a key point that I want to touch on, and that is you're processing a lot of information, you're touching a lot of information, and this is where these technologies really help us because they enable us to better manipulate and use that information. I don't know if any of you other ladies want to comment on what Dina had to say.
I can comment. I think that the point you made, Soraya, is really important. AI is a tool to help us be more effective, and almost all the use cases we're seeing at Google Cloud are just that. Let's make our decision making faster, more high quality. You know, the introduction of new foundation models and new technology like our Gemini will allow you to analyze. You can take in a text document with an image embedded in the document and a little description of what the image is, and the AI can actually read that entire thing and summarize it for you. Way faster than any human could actually do in reading and in understanding all of that information, especially when it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages, like I know we have.
Exactly.
So I think it's a great use case, and that human in the loop that you talked about is really important, Dina, making sure that that's one of the things, you know, that you can help ensure your process is both grounded and checking, you know, on factual information, and then also to make sure that you're incorporating responsible AI practices.
Exactly.
That's really an important aspect of it as well.
Exactly. Thank you.
Love those points.
So, Polly, as we consider, and it's for those of you who may not know, so Polly used to be the director of the Procurement Innovation Lab. So I bring that up because we have a great career together, and she did some great things there, and she's a huge fan of technology, and I know that for a fact. So as we consider the purchase and use of the latest technologies, especially AI, generative AI, machine learning, natural language processing, and so on, what is the training that we need to provide our acquisition professionals? And in answering this question, I want you to think about, are there changes that we need to make as acquisition professionals, not only in the training, but even in the how and the when we train?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is absolutely, right? We need to be informed buyers, and that does not mean that we need to become IT experts, right? And I think that is always a hard balance of knowing just enough, right, to be dangerous. But the reality is that the contracting officer, right, our contract specialists, work as part of an acquisition team. And so you need to train our acquisition workforce, and specifically our procurement professionals, on what it is they are buying, right? So basic literacy at a minimum, right? Common terms and concepts. You know, our DHS, CIO organization just rolled out fantastic training on generative AI. It's publicly, you know, available for you guys to look at on our DHS.gov website. But that is at least giving our folks a kind of primer. The Federal Acquisition Institute, Federal Acquisition Institute established a primer as well. It's called FAC 100. And we are already training our IT buyers through our digital IT professional training program, or DITAP program, right? We have for years. It's a requirement if you buy over $700K a year in IT. And so as folks are going through that pipeline, that's where we learned Agile. That's where we learned cloud. Right now we're also learning. We have been actually, right, AI, but generative AI, and what that means, and how that's different than maybe the ML of yesterday, right? And what large language models mean and algorithms mean, right? The math behind this capability. So our buyers know enough, right? And I think that's important. But once and done isn't the way we learn when technology changes daily. So I do think we have more work to do around just-in-time, continual learning. And so I think, as we work with our acquisition teams, how we keep those teams current becomes part of what we have to do together, right? And engagement with industry is going to be a piece of that. But beyond training our acquisition or our professionals themselves, it's making sure that we continuously think about the team composition and culture of going out and getting the right people at the table when we're forming requirements, developing acquisition strategy, engaging with our industry partners, understanding through demos and engagement, right, the capability for what our use case is, because we don't buy AI to buy AI, we buy AI to solve our mission challenge. So who do we have to bring to the table, and making sure that expertise is at the table? And it's not just IT, right? We heard the last panel. It's privacy, it's security, right? It's our legal partners, so that we have the right terms and conditions for what we're buying in our contracts. And so really another big piece of that learning is going to be making sure we are partnering and bringing the right folks to the table as we go through the process of the requirements development, again, the strategies for the buy, and most importantly, the contract negotiation, because having those right provisions in our contracts, ensuring we're covering things like security, data, intellectual property, and then what we're doing with the outputs, as well as performance metrics under contract, to ensure that the AI that we're buying today stays responsible, understandable, right, et cetera, explainable as it grows, because AI changes the more we put the data and the modeling in. So those are just a few initial thoughts. I could probably talk this whole time. But
Well, no, you raised a really important point that I want to allow any of the other panel members to comment, and that's about bringing the right team to the table. And that takes, teaching our contracting officers to understand who is on that team. Yeah. And, one of the essential partners is obviously the end users, or the program officials that are representing the end users. But you brought up people like legal, like IT, like privacy, like the chief data officer. These are critical players. And any other panelists, please feel free to jump in. How do we teach our contracting officers to think more in that way, especially now that we're working more remotely, where it's easier to kind of leave people out of the equation? Anybody want to take a shot at that?
So I can talk not about contracting officers, because I'm not a contracting officer. I am an acquisition professional, so more of a acquisition program type scenario. It takes a lot of years to plan an acquisition program, like the automated commercial environment, the ACE system that's used to process all cargo coming into the country. It took 4 years just to plan it, much less, implement it. So now we have a lot of different executive orders coming out. We have legislation, regulations, and policy. We need to make smart decisions now before we get halfway through that acquisition planning, and then we have to change our role. So it's important to work, and Diane Sabatino talked about this a lot. We rely heavily on our Chief Information Officer, the CIO, Sunny Begwalia. He's building out a governance framework for CBP to use to standardize some of our AI practices. And in that frame will be the training. And another thing is for industry to know that when we're talking about the big data that we're responsible for, just be open to providing the transparency that we'll need in in order to use the AI and that we are going to have to do cybersecurity testing on it and independent privacy threshold assessments. And, it's just how it's going to have to be done.
Exactly. No, thank you. Thank you. So Elizabeth, I'm going to turn to you and say, here's my question. So as technology continues to advance and even individuals without deep technical expertise are engaged and have to be vigilant about protecting privacy and security, how can we prepare our workforce to understand those concepts of privacy and security, not only in their business life, but also even in their professional life?
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good point. Cybersecurity is definitely no longer just the responsibility of the IT professionals.
Right.
We probably all go through training, at least periodically, about what to look for, making sure that we are not clicking on suspicious links. And, I think that's important. And I love that you talked about both in your business life and also your personal life, because, it applies to both of those. So I think having, the training that, actually I saw the training, Polly, that you mentioned on the DHS.gov website. It's really great. And it covers some of this too, that makes sure that as it relates to AI, is the tool geared towards consumers? Is it open to the public? Are you putting, appropriate information into a prompt to be able to leverage that? You want to make sure that, you're using the tools for the right use case. And so we at Google Cloud have built an enterprise-grade platform, which we call Vertex, that is private and secure by design. So your data is your data. It doesn't leave the model. It's not used for training. It's really just used for yours. So those types of tools, those are helpful for when you're doing, analysis, or when you're trying to generate, perhaps content, because generative AI is really great at generating the starter content that you can then go in and, take a look at and update. So some of the tricks, some of the things I think that's on us to educate ourselves and make sure that we're, going beyond just IT is sort of what are those systems designed for, and are we, looking out for the right use case, for the right tool for the right use case. And it's getting, more and more, I think, one of the panelists earlier talked about the fact that AI is also a very useful tool in helping to identify or prevent, things like this. So, for example, spam filters have been around for years. Many of you are probably familiar with Gmail, and we have really amazing AI routines that are helping to identify and block that kind of, content already. We've also, for our enterprise platform, introduced digital watermarking so that we actually stamp AI-generated images, which is another thing that we're doing just to try and make sure that we're, creating opportunities for the technology to also, be improved and be better and more comprehensive to help. But I think it's a combination of both training, and it's not just IT, it's sort of all of us, business and personal lives, to be aware of the types of, things that are being created and using the right tool for the right job.
Well, and you raise a really important point. A lot of times folks don't understand that if you don't know the tool that you're using and you put data into that tool, you may have just compromised your data. Mm-hmm. Because unless you read that fine print, you don't know how they're going to use that data and whether they're going to use it to train, to expand the model. It could be out there in the public domain. So it is really important. That's why I said personal and professional, because I think a lot of times we don't know that. In fact, it was interesting to me. I was at a different session on AI and acquisitions. And at the end of the session, a gentleman came up to me and said, while you were up there, I had AI, ChatGPT, generate a poem about Soraya as she retired from the government.
Oh, wow.
And it knew like every place I'd been. I'm like, okay, this is like way too much, right? It was a good poem, though. It was really nice. It was really nice. But it's interesting, the data that's out there and how quickly. He did this while we were on a panel discussion of less than half an hour. So it's how quickly and how effectively it can go out and call the data and bring it back to you. And that's exactly why we want to use it, because the government has millions and millions of files with data and information. Well, I'm going to say data, it's not information. We need to convert it to information so we can use it for good decision making. Anybody else want to jump in here?
I was going to just, a little thing.
Yeah.
It's not just the government either.
Yeah,
It's everybody's collecting your data. I read somewhere a few years ago that if you leave your house for the day and return, your photo's been taken about 1,000 times just in one day. Everybody has your stuff. So it's not just a matter of, what we want to do or whether we should do it. It's how do we put some framework around it so it's used in a way that's safe and secure for the American public.
So it's interesting you said that, because a lot of people there was a time when people thought the government was watching you. Now it's everybody watching you. In fact, the government's probably the last one that's collecting your data right now. So, okay, so Casey, I'm going to ask you a question. As the component acquisition executive at CBP, you have the responsibility for setting policy and conducting oversight of major acquisition programs. Can you share with us some of your thoughts on how AI can help you improve acquisition and related processes in terms of like the acquisition programs, establishing them, but also conducting the proper level of oversight on them?
Sure. So I talked a little bit about how long it can take to plan an acquisition program. So the best case scenario is you start your AI journey at the very beginning of the planning. You identify your capability gap for what you're trying to buy. You work with industry. You identify different AI alternatives that you can use, and then you pilot and you do technology demonstrators. And in doing that, you'll know if it can help you meet your capability gap, but it'll also give you the opportunity to mitigate any risks associated with, data security or privacy security. We keep hearing that over and over again. And, we do that in CBP through our acquisition program managers. They work with our chief technology officer and our chief information officer, going all the way back to IT always. And they set up several years ago AI Center of Innovation, and they test everything from automated commercial environments to truffle machines. And they have several use cases, including that they're working on right now, including identifying and targeting, criminal organizations, identifying goods made of forced labor, maintaining the security of our supply chain. So a lot going on in that arena, and we use that heavily in the very beginning of our planning for acquisition programs. You asked me about some tools that we use for our processes.
Sure.
Going back to the procurements, the contracting of it, we have a few robotic process automation tools, which I'm told is AI on training wheels, kind of. Okay, good. And three of them that come to mind that's a brand new one for congressional notifications. If contract action requires congressional notification, our contracting officers know about it because they use this RPA. We have the obligation RPA that helps significantly at the end of the fiscal year. And then another one that we just started that helps us with our PR packages. We might have stole that from you. I heard you talking about it earlier. But again, it's really about continuing to work with industry as we're moving forward and holding those industry days where we can talk about CBP's views on AI, and then what our acquisition programs are that are coming out in the next few years, so that we can identify AI potentials.
So you raised an interesting point in your comment to Dina, which is one of the things that I think is happening more and more across the government, at least I know in our profession, in the acquisition profession, is happening more and more, is the sharing of the technology and the data and what we're learning. In other words, we're not, in the past, sometimes we worked in stovepipes. I don't know, Polly, what's your experience in this area, please?
I think we're doing a much better job, right? Even over the last, 5 years of working across not just the inter-department, right? The efforts that CBP has undertaken around RPA and some machine learning capability for these process improvements, stemmed actually from a crowdsourcing concept, right, that we launched at the department level, and it was using a process to bring user-centered ideas to bear on improving our acquisition process. CBP saw what we were doing at the department level and said, hey, can we use your system to launch this idea at the component level? And so, you know, even just sharing the frameworks where we solicit ideas from our workforce is a piece of that. You know, a few years ago, and I know some of you guys in the audience were part of the journey with us, but we undertook an effort to work across 9 federal agencies to experiment with our artificial intelligence around accessing contractor performance reports from our CPARS, Contractor Performance Assessment Reporting System. And had some really fantastic proof of concepts and initial rollouts. It kind of evolved because of some policy to market research capability, but today we fielded that, and you know, we led an effort, but it was co-funded by 9 agencies, and now they are commercial products that were built by the procurement community with industry, federally available for any agency to buy. And so, you know, Dina talked about the fact that we are under-resourced, right, in the mission support departments of procurement and acquisition, and so we have to lean on each other and share the demos, share the costs, share that engagement, and then benefit for the greater good. And so I think there's a lot more we can do in this space, but we've had some really good early successes. We've learned a lot along the way, and I think that is our only path forward. Especially, I mean, as we sit here wondering if we're funded, right, as of midnight. Like, we don't have a choice. We have to be smart about how we build this capability and then procure it.
Yeah, no, I agree, wholeheartedly agree. So at this point, I'm going to turn to the audience to see if you all have any questions for our panelists. Okay, we have somebody. Do we have a micro? We're going to get you a microphone.
And I think this is probably to Polly, but probably to all of you. As Soraya mentioned, we have a lot of data, but we haven't turned it into information. Mm-hmm. So we have these 2 source of vehicles, a lot of pricing information out there. And right now, old people like me use websites, right? So is there some way that you guys could look at some effort, or maybe it's going on now, I don't know, to put that information somewhere, look at it from a AI standpoint, and then allow us to be able to give a tool to someone like Kayla and Sarah as a legacy, because this is going to be the environment that they're going to be working in, so that they can be better informed buyers. I mean, we have the data. We just don't need them to be searching 10,000 websites in order to do market research. So there's a way we can do it better, and there's a way that we can create better and informed buyers so that we can make better buying decisions quickly, because that's what we have to do.
Robin, I mean, yes, right? Preach.
We all vote yes.
Preach. And it's funny because you mentioned prices paid, and the reality is right now data is everything, right? But our data is disparate. It's in different systems that are not interconnected, and our fields, right? Any database administrator would be horrified about the inconsistent approach that we have across the federal sector, and any vendor, right, who works in multiple agencies, or even the same agency with 2 different contracting officers, right, knows CLIN structures differ, right, how we segregate costs under contractors differs, and so getting our data to a consistent standard so that it can be leveraged across different systems and aggregated and utilized by the AI is our first step, right? And I bet you could talk for hours, Elizabeth, about this as a challenge. But I mean, that is our kind of our first step, right? And luckily we are paying attention to it, and you know, at least for the next year, right? The Better Contracting Initiative that's been stood up by the Office of Federal Procurement Policy, the high-def data environment is a big one. And Dina can speak to how TSA actually shared CLIN level pricing data as part of a pilot so that we can understand the manual nature of how that has to be pulled now so that we can learn about how we can develop better consistent methods to collect data so that it can be leveraged by these tools. And I think we are very nascent from a procurement community in that kind of growth process, but getting a hold of the data structure is our first step, and I think that's kind of where we're spending some time these days. I wish it could be faster, but that's the reality of where we are.
Yeah, I'd love to weigh in. This is a great challenge for us to potentially partner on because the technology is really improving leaps and bounds. This field of generative AI, it's so exciting because of how much we're able to do and how fast things are going and new inventions keep coming out. So it actually now we do have tools now that can go in and read very different types of data and understand it immediately and you can also train the AI on your specific, forms or structures. But we really should consider working on that. We could, you can actually, for example, with our tools, you can actually, comprehend a form, just point the AI at the form and it will know, what those fields are and how to fill that out. You can point it at multiple different sources of data, whether that's, a site that's just storing unstructured data or a database and really now there are tools that will allow you to synthesize that information and sort of bring it into a place that even without this is a big difference between the old AI and generative AI is that now you don't have to do quite as much of the data prep. We still want to make sure that we're thinking about what security of it, and we have tools to do that as well. This is for an internal audience, this is for a different audience, but the tools have really come a long way recently, and you can do a lot more. We also introduced recently our, and you'll hear a lot of the announcement. It's like, what does this mean? We introduced our Gemini 1.5 model recently, which includes a very long context window of up to a million characters. What does that mean? Well, the context window is the information you're giving the AI that you can then analyze in real time. 1 million characters is enough for a couple books or the entire U.S. tax code, for example. I'm sure there's a lot of, DHS policy documents that you can write, enter right into the prompt, and then you can actually have, a conversation from there and ask questions. And our tool does provide citations, so it can link right back to where the information was found so that you can do that due diligence and check to make sure that the information is what you were looking for. So there's a lot of opportunity here. We'd love to partner on this particular challenge. It's a great one for improved productivity.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is because we've been talking about pricing for years, and one of the challenges with pricing is that no two prices are actually the same. Mm-hmm. And so when you're trying to do that comparison, when you're trying to use that pricing to make a comparison, you have to understand what's behind those prices. Mm-hmm. What was the basis for the price? And that's where the AI can come in very handy, that it can take this AI and, for lack of a better term, tell you the flavor of truffle that you're looking at, right? What's the flavor of that price that you're looking at? I got my truffle in.
That's a great point.
I got my truffle in. Okay. Next question. We have a question over there.
Yes, I'm Gigi Bakhtar from Hive Group. I'm going to cheat and squeeze in 2 questions. Okay. So the first is that what is your methodology for overcoming, across the workforce, overcoming fear and resistance at all levels of the workforce? And the other question is, when you speak of teams also, how do you find sometimes, or how do you attain a common language that different members of the team can speak and understand the same language? Because I'm sure that you've faced this before. So, thank you.
I can try. So as far as the fear, I think that as our workforce, we get new people like Kayla and Sarah. They wish we would hurry up. They think we're too slow. they can pick up the processing and the way that you use these things quickly. My kids do all the time. They're just like, Mom, you're taking, just give me your phone, Mom. We'll do it. So I don't think that's going to be it's going to be the old fogies like me that are struggling. Rick, tell me again how to do that. Can you give me some steps that I have to take? So I just think it's probably going to be something that is going to be introduced, and we're just going to have to learn how to use it. And then what was the part two?
Common language.
Common language.
Teams.
So we do have some folks in IT, at least in TSA, in our IT area that are collaborating with folks in my office that are developing draft sample clause language that'll kind of tell us and our contractors how we intend to apply AI. And then if we get it right or halfway right, we'll elevate it up and it'll go hopefully to the FAR councils so that they can incorporate it into our federal acquisition regulations. And I'm assuming in the IT regulations as well.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So just a quick comment on the whole fear thing. It's change management. It's change management like any other change management process, and it's about talking to our workforce, educating them, and showing them what this technology is, giving them the opportunity to experience it. All too often, we talk about processes and data and technology, and we talk about it like at this level. We need to put it in their hands and let them experience it and see it. That's what removes fear. That's the best way to remove fear. With respect to common language, when we talk about common language across AI, that certainly falls to the IT community. But one of the things that the Defense Acquisition University and the Federal Acquisition Institute have done is now joined forces to come up with a single certification for the contracting profession. And that ties right back to some work that was done by the National Contract Management Association to standardize the contract management language so that we speak in the same language across the government, both buyer and seller community. And I'm pleased to say that a lot of folks are adopting that contract management standard, which means that we're all going to learn the vernacular in the same way so that when you're looking at our contracts, there is consistency. There's consistency in the way we present concepts, the way we train people, and more importantly, how we interact with industry. So I think those are some areas where certainly we can improve. That's a great question, and I agree on the fear and resistance. I agree with Dina. The fear and resistance, us old folks, and by the way, I'm all in. But it is the newer generation of worker that's coming in that's pushing us in this direction because they're going, well, you're using a PC? They use a phone. They text, right? They'll write a whole contract on a phone right now, because they also want a contract that's like one page, right? So I don't think there's fear and resistance there. Looking at my watch, we're getting close to the end of our time. And I want to be conscious of that. Is there any other question, any other pressing question that we can answer? I was looking over here to see if there was anybody here, but, okay. Oh, there's a lady. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Ken Phelan with Thompson Communications. As you know, as the federal government dives deeper into technology modernization to respond to its AI, big data, language modeling needs, it's finding that it needs to engage with the private sector and industry. And as a part of that, I understand there's the congressionally appropriated SBR, Small Business Innovation Research, where the federal government is engaging with technology companies that are emerging that can help solve their technology needs. So with that perspective, what's your take on engaging with companies that are going through the Small Business Innovation Research process and how to leverage those innovative and emerging technology companies to respond to AI and other technology platforms?
I can talk,
Also, are you beginning to, get your contracting and procurement specialists up to speed on how to leverage that powerful technology or that powerful status?
Well, I think that's probably what I can talk to most, and then I think some of the folks from the components might be able to give some specifics. But we actually recognized the fact that we have great authorities at the department, right? We potentially have a bill in front of the Hill that looks like it's on a path to passing that would extend our OT authority for 7 years instead of annually, right? Like, whew, that would be helpful. We have our commercial solutions opening pilot program that is in play, that has a multiple year authority now. We have, as every other federal agency, right, access to support companies and bring capability on board through the SBIR program and the STTR, SBIR and STTR programs. But we have done maybe not as good of a job as we needed to do in informing not just our contracting professionals, but our acquisition professionals, right? Our entire acquisition community about what those authorities are, good use cases for those authorities, how and when to use them, how to make decisions about, you know, as you write and frame mission problems into requirements documents and shape your acquisition strategy, how to consider that whole portfolio and toolbox. And so very recently, our Chief Procurement Officer challenged a team of us at headquarters to revision how we're training and upskilling our acquisition community at the department on that. And I think you're going to be seeing, and this is going to be part of our discussion at Thursday's strategic industry conversation as well. There's a panel with Sarah Todd, our policy director, and Katie Crompton, our new Procurement Innovation Lab director, talking about some of this work. So I think you're going to see more in the coming year to 2 years on knowledge and capability of our acquisition teams to bring these authorities and programs more expanded across the department so that we can access the capabilities and the companies that would bring solutions appropriately through those authorities as well as our traditional acquisition authority. So use cases, these guys might have more practice on, but
Yeah.
I do think that it's
One
a
more
really
question
point.
over here, so we'll try to do 2 in 1, do a use
Fair
case
enough,
as well
yep.
as answer the question.
Hi, all. China Sherry, ECS Federal. I think the implementation of AI is necessary to create efficiencies, but do you all see it increasing the risk of protest as these tools are increased? And if so, how are you mitigating against that?
So I can try. We're not there yet, but in my mind, I don't think it would increase protests. I think it would decrease because we can make sure that we're doing things consistently and more accurately and reduce the likelihood of us making mistakes that humans just make, right? Humans get tired. Right. Humans get distracted. They lose track of where they were. The use of the AI can help keep us consistent and on track. So I think we'll be better off for having incorporated that into our processes.
And I'll give you a use case. If I were queen for a day, we would have generative AI generate the debrief. Think about that. Generate the debrief. Now you go challenge the AI and leave us alone so we can do the job. No, just kidding. But think about it. I mean, I say that partially in jest, but think about it. You could feed it the information, and it can generate that debrief document for you, and it'll probably comply with regulations and all that good stuff, and make it a little more difficult for companies to just challenge for the sake of challenging. There are protests out there that are valid, and I will always defend a company's right to challenge the government if the government has made a mistake, because we owe it to our citizenry to do the right job. But there are folks that file frivolous protests, and I think a generative AI tool that generates that debriefing, and by the way, then Dina doesn't have to explain it to you. Here's your tool. Go talk to the PC or the phone or whatever. So in these last minutes, and I know that we're running out of time, but I can't resist. I got 4 incredible professional women here, and I just want to ask each one of them, to please give us one good nugget of advice for the women in the audience who are either in any acquisition field or even in any other professional field, a good nugget of advice about navigating their careers. So I'll start with you, Dina. How's that?
Okay, so I've done whole conversations on this, but
Yeah,
I have
you only
to
get
just
10
pick
seconds.
One. It's relationships. It all comes down to relationships. Build your relationships. Expand your network to the extent that you can. Come to forums like this so you can meet and greet people. And you don't want to wait for an emergency before you ask for someone's business card. You need to know who the people are. They need to know who you are. When they hear the name Soraya, you want them to go, "Oh yeah, Soraya," not "Oh, Soraya." So you want to you want to get out there, and you can't just sit behind your desk and work hard. You got to know folks too.
Exactly. Great. Thank you.
I love that.
Elizabeth.
I would just say jump in. Just jump in. Don't think. Just go, because there's a lot of opportunities to embrace, and we're sitting on one right now. Generative AI is going to really change technology and the landscape of the way that we work. Really, the way that we work will change. How many of us even heard the word large language model like a year and a half ago? Probably nobody in the room, or very few of us.
Right.
And I was at a big tech company. So I think, you know, there's always a great time to just jump in and learn. And, you know, that's kind of one of the things I've used in my whole career. It's worked
Thank
well.
you. Casey?
I would say the same thing, but it's take care of your people. I mean, it always comes down to that.
Thank you. And Polly?
Maintain a learner's mindset, right? Be willing to hear new ideas, adapt, change your position and perspective, learn from your team and your network. That will help you grow and be able to adapt in your role and bring your best self to your role, but it also will set the tone for your organization and help your culture and your organization adapt and grow and continuously improve. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Polly. The piece of advice that I always try to give folks is be authentic, be yourself. That's what your folks need, that's what your leadership needs, that's what your peers need. So just be authentic, be true to yourself. Believe you me, you will be successful. So with that, I want to thank these 4 wonderful ladies for their contributions.